At that time, our house had just been built in a new colony, an area where most of the land was still vacant. A few houses had been built, and some were still under construction. Since many plots were still empty in this new settlement, a group of nomads had set up huts on this deserted land. These people were strange. The men spent their entire days either doing nothing or playing cards, and in their free time, they slept. Most of them had the hobby of raising chickens or dogs. The women, apart from doing housework, also worked laboriously to maintain the family's economic situation and feed their families. Some of them even begged to get by. My room was on the upper floor, and the window of my room opened directly towards the direction where the nomads' huts were located. When I felt bored, I would look at their huts. I had the chance to observe their daily life and their way of living. One day, someone rang the bell at our gate. I peeked through the window and saw a young girl standing at the gate, coming from the direction of the huts. There was no one else at home to open the gate. My mother was sleeping in her room, and it was the afternoon. The girl was beautiful and young. I felt like calling her over to chat. I quickly ran down the stairs and reached the gate. "What do you need? Where did you come from?" I asked. She pointed towards the huts, meaning she came from there. "What do you need?" I asked again. She replied, "My mother is very ill. She has a high fever. Do you have any medicine for fever?" I gave her some headache and fever tablets and told her to bring her mother in the evening so that my brother, who was a doctor, could check her and prescribe more medicine. She thanked me and left. Later that evening, around 8 p.m., the gate bell rang again. This time, my brother opened the door. Shama and her sick mother had come. I informed my brother that a poor woman from the huts had come, and she was sick. My brother invited them inside, asked them to sit on a cot, and checked her pulse. He gave her medicine and explained that if she didn't feel better, she should come back and he would run some tests. This is how I got to know Shama. Her mother got better after taking my brother's medicine, but Shama started coming over 2 to 3 times a week. Sometimes she came to get ice, and other times she said her family had run out of flour or vegetables. My mother would give her any leftover food. One day while chatting, Shama told me that when she was little, she would go with her mother to beg because her mother had been sick and weak for a long time, so she couldn't work. As Shama grew older, she started going out to beg alone. She quickly realized that men gave her more alms because she was beautiful. She had large, expressive eyes, and her dusky complexion made her very attractive. She had a close relationship with a relative, and they often went begging together. According to her, there was no concept of sin or reward in their tradition, so nothing out of the ordinary ever surprised her. Whenever something unusual happened while begging, she didn't think much of it, saying, "Sundus Bibi, these things are nothing new. The great thing is we get a lot of alms." Her stories were very interesting to me because they were new and unique. I often asked her to come over every day. Whenever she needed cold water, ice, or food, she would ring the bell. I made sure to keep a bowl of water in the freezer for her so she would get enough ice. I also kept some leftover food for her. It was my way of encouraging her to come so I could hear more about her life. She would usually come in the afternoon when my father and brother weren't home, and my mother was asleep after taking her medicine. This was the perfect time when Shama would sit with me for 10 to 15 minutes, and it would relieve my boredom because there was a lot of emptiness in the new area. One day, Shama told me that early in the morning, she and other girls and women would go out to beg in the city. One day, she went to a shop where the shopkeeper was counting cash. He spoke to her for a while and then gave her a 10-rupee note. She was happy and thanked him before leaving. After that, she made it a routine to visit the shop every 2 or 3 days, and the shopkeeper would give her a 10-rupee note after exchanging a few words with her. A few days later, he asked her to come to the back alley of the shop. When she went, he was waiting by the door of another shop. Shama soon realized what his intentions were, but she wasn't surprised because she had become used to such things. When she was about to leave, he gave her a larger sum of money, much more than she could ever get from begging all day. As she walked away, he also made her promise to come back again, which she agreed to. When I went to the shop, he would signal me to go to the back alley of the house. Inside the house, there were some hospitality items. He would treat me with fruits, sweets, and sometimes even meals. Gradually, we became so familiar with each other that instead of begging from door to door, I started going to his house in the morning. I would spend some time with him and return to my place in the evening. Every time, He would give me an amount of money that was more than what I would usually earn from begging all day. When I would give this money to my mother, she would be overjoyed. In this new house, I had to leave for an unknown destination. Nomads don't form attachments, but Shama, the naive one, had become attached to the shopkeeper, Amir, and now it was beyond her ability to untangle the complex emotions of love. She didn't even have time to inform Amir that her group was leaving. She asked me to inform him on her behalf. When I asked her about it, she told me she had his number and handed me a piece of paper with two numbers written on it. I dialed the number but didn't talk. "You should talk to him directly," I said, handing her the receiver. She spoke briefly and then hung up. She told me she would be sneaking out through the back gate of the house. I warned her that her family might ring the doorbell, but she assured me that no one would notice her leaving. She said she would return soon, but she wanted to make a final visit to Amir. "Maybe he'll give me more money, which will help for my mother's treatment," she said, looking sad. I opened the back door and she slipped away. She secretly went to Amir's house, where he was waiting for her. He welcomed her inside, and when the evening came and it was time to close the shop, Amir locked his house and left, comforting Shama by telling her that nothing could happen immediately. He said, "I can't take you home because I'm married with 4 children. My family won't accept you. I need a few days to think of a plan." After 2 hours, Shama's mother rang our doorbell, asking if I knew anything about her daughter, as she had been missing since evening. I told her, "Noura Amma, I haven't seen her. She never came here." I lied, as I didn't want to get involved in these matters. After Noura Amma left, I began to feel concerned about Shama. I still had the paper with the shopkeeper's number. I decided to dial it and see who would pick up. Shama answered. When she heard my voice, it seemed like she had come back to life. She said, "Sundus Baji, he locked me in his house and left. The door is locked from the outside. He'll be back tomorrow morning." I reassured her, "Your mother came asking about you today, and she was planning to leave, but the whole family is searching for you." When she heard this, she became sad. I offered to tell Noura Amma where she was, but Shama refused. "Don't do that," she pleaded. "If they find me, they'll punish me for betraying the tribe and sell me to another tribe." She continued, "Now my life and death are tied to Amir because I love him, but I'm afraid he may deceive me." She made me promise that I would call her again the next night. The following night, after midnight, I dialed the number, and Shama answered. She told me that Amir had come at 9 a.m. with breakfast, then returned around noon to have lunch with her. At 7 p.m., he locked her in the house again and left, assuring her he would return the next morning. I asked her, "Shama, how long will this go on? Your people are still searching for you." She replied, "That's why Amir is keeping me inside. He doesn't want anyone to see me. I'll come out once my family leaves." After a week of searching, the nomads finally left, and I called Shama to inform her that they had left. "They searched for you for a long time, but now they've left. You can come out now." Another week passed, and Shama was still trapped inside. Amir didn't let her breathe fresh air for even a moment. She had never imagined it would come to this, but eventually she grew tired. She cried and told him, "In your love, I left my parents and loved ones, gave up my free life, and now I am trapped in a room under a roof. How long will I remain confined? I was born to live in the open sky, free, but here I am imprisoned under a roof. We, wanderers, never settle in one place. We do not build homes or stay in them." Amir replied, "You should have thought about this before. If you wanted to live freely, why did you fall in love with me? You should have fallen in love with another wanderer, someone who roams from city to city, but now you have to accept this life." After a month of being locked in an empty room, she became desperate. When I would call her at night, she would beg me, "Sundas, please don't stop calling me. Please call me every day or I will die. I am terrified of being alone in this room. It feels like the roof and walls will fall on me." When she broke down, Amir brought along a friend, a police inspector named Mohammed Bashir, to discuss her situation. Bashir said to Amir, "You have a wife and children, and yet you cannot marry this girl. You have trapped her here while her parents and relatives have all gone. Let me do the right thing. My wife passed away a year ago, and I have 2 young children to take care of. If this girl can raise my children with love, I will marry her and give her a respectful place in my home. Shama said, Amir really wants to get rid of me. Otherwise, why would he bring up this idea of Bashir? If my family finds out, they will kick me out. Where will I go then? She was heartbroken and helpless. But what could she do? She called me at midnight and asked what to do. I advised her to accept Bashir's offer and live a respectable life as his wife. If you stay loyal to Amr, you will live in shame, I told her. The next day, Amir came with Bashir again and asked her decision. She agreed to marry Bashir. Amir himself arranged her marriage with his friend. This too was a kind of loyalty. As if Amr had thrown her out, she wouldn't have known what to do. After the wedding, Shama shared her story with her husband and expressed a desire to meet me. One day, she and her husband visited our house. My mother recognized her and we sat her down in the drawing room. She said, Look, sister, you can never trust men. Amir only met me for fun. Thank God Bashir, a good man, came into my life. Otherwise, I don't know what would have happened. Maybe I would have ended up begging, living on the streets. Even though I did not want to marry because I left my parents for Amir, his betrayal opened my eyes. I understood the situation in time, and I chose Bashir. He is a diamond, sister. Otherwise, who would have made a wandering beggar like me the jewel of their home? I asked her husband, what did you see in Shama that made you take such a big decision? He replied, we policemen have seen a lot and learned to be cautious. When I saw Shama's helplessness and vulnerability, my heart trembled with the fear of God. I thought if this helpless girl is given a home, respect, and love, she would appreciate it. And my children, who have always longed for a mother's love, would now have a mother in Shama. My children were neglected by relatives, and now, with Shama as their mother, I and my children found peace. Shama also found peace. She sometimes remembers her parents but knows she must forget them, for wanderers have no permanent home, and they cannot maintain relationships. After hearing this from Bashir, I thought, this police officer could have traced Shama's parents, but perhaps he didn't want to form any ties with wanderers. Anyway, Shama's fortune was good. She found a good husband. Bashir's career flourished quickly, and he was awarded a medal and a promotion for capturing some criminals. Years later, Shama came to visit me again, and we lost contact after that. 8 years passed. One day I went to a supermarket with my family when I saw her. She had gained weight, but she recognized me immediately and said, I have 3 children now, and I am very happy in my home. Bashir has become a senior police officer. God has blessed me with so many joys, and I have everything I need. The only thing I sometimes feel sad about is missing my parents. Shama had transformed into a graceful, more beautiful woman. I thought about how people often criticize the police, but in this department, there are good-hearted people like Bashir. If he had not supported a helpless woman like Shama, where would she have gone? Sometimes life takes strange turns. She was in love with someone else, but became the wife of someone else. It's all part of God's plan. I'm glad Shama found happiness, and maybe she would have never been happy with Amir, who already had a wife and children. God made the best decision for her by bringing Bashir into her life.